Every 11 minutes, an American takes their own life. Just 6 weeks between you learning about the depression, your daughter took her own life.
And her frustration showed. They're not helping me, Mom.
After relentless bullying in middle school, Ty's 12-year-old daughter was pushed to a desperate act. What were they calling her?
Black, talking about her picking cotton.
You set up meetings. You talked to the school.
Teachers were just letting the kids do what they meant.
My frustration here is, where are the adults? Tonight, we confront one of the most urgent and heartbreaking crises of our time: suicide. Every 11 minutes, an American takes their own life. It's the second leading cause of death among our youth. Why is nobody listening to our children? Children that are screaming for help, often from the edge. In harrowing cases, children have reached a desperate breaking point, crying out for intervention, and yet oftentimes schools are involved and they have remained silent, and the adults in the room have failed to act. How do these tragedies unfold, and what does it say about the system meant to protect our youth? Well, we're going to peel back the layers of a devastating failure and search for answers that could save a lot of lives. If it saves even one life, it matters. My first guest, Azucena, recently marked 1 year without her 17-year-old daughter, Elise, who tragically, despite the family's intervention, carried out her intentions with the help of her boyfriend. Well, it's so good to meet you, but I am so very, very sorry for the circumstances. I wish we were talking about anything else. This is the first time you've spoken about this publicly.
Yes.
It's been hard.
Definitely, most definitely. Hardest thing in my life.
Your daughter told a friend in class about some self-harm, right? And that student did the right thing, correct? That student reached out and reported it to a school counselor. Tell me what happened.
Thank you. My daughter confided in one of her friends and mentioned to her that she was having thoughts of harming herself and things along those lines. And her friend, of course, heard her out. But as soon as they were done in that class, she went to the counselor and told the counselor that she was concerned about her friend, that she didn't know if she should be saying something. But she did, and told the counselor, and that's when the counselor pulled my daughter out of class, contacted us, had a talk with her. Once she got a hold of us, told us that, she couldn't release her without us picking her up, and we had to go get her evaluated at a hospital.
Mm-hmm. And just 6 weeks between you learning about the depression, she, in fact, took her own life, correct?
That's right. It was September 29th, the day the counselor called me. And she passed away November 20th.
This was something that obviously was a shock to you. You didn't expect this. When you look back on this and you kind of deconstruct everything that took place, what do you conclude from it? What do you take away from it? What have you learned?
I feel like I have learned the signs. I think that there were signs at that time. I did not feel like they were signs. I thought maybe my daughter was going through the normal teenage things and her friends and school, and she was in her senior year. So I thought all those things put together were affecting her life. But looking back at it now, it definitely was a sign. She withdrew from things that she used to love to do. And she started withdrawing. She didn't want to go to the football games anymore, things like that. Those were definite signs that I wish I would have done something sooner. Because I don't think that she had enough time to, I don't want to say understand, but cope and get the help that she really needed.
Right. And in retrospect, how long do you think she had been struggling with this? How long do you think she had been having thoughts of ending her own life? How long do you think she had been self-harming?
In retrospect, I think it had been happening for a few months, where she started struggling with school, struggling with, social activities. And I think when she talked to her friend, it was a scream for help. She knew she couldn't do it by herself, and it wasn't getting any better by herself, just keeping it to herself. And she knew that. I think that deep down she knew she needed someone else's help.
Mhm. If you had this to do over again, and of course you don't, but other parents might be in a situation that you were in a year and 6 weeks ago, a year and 2 months ago, what would you do different? What would you say to parents that would maybe have that little voice that they don't want to hear in their head, but it's there?
I would say listen, and don't be afraid to ask. I know we're more afraid of the answer than we are the question, but don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask your child, are you okay? Do you need help with anything? Can I help you? And if you're not okay, it's okay not to be okay. And it's okay not to understand your child. It's okay not to understand depression, because I didn't. I didn't at that time. I thought I couldn't understand why she was depressed. We're a big family. We do a lot of things together. We stay on top of them. We very, very involved in school. And I just couldn't understand it. And I would tell parents, don't try to understand it. Because if you don't know what depression is, you don't understand.
You did take her to counselors.
I did.
When I look back at the things that you did, of course, you didn't have the outcome that you expected or certainly that you wanted. But when this hit your radar, you did so many right things. I have to tell you, if I was going to grade your paper, I'd want to tell you, I'd look for things to say that you should have done that you didn't do. But I have to tell you, you did so many right things here. And I want you to hear me when I tell you that. This is what I do for a living. And I'm telling you, you did so many right things. You got her professional help, right?
Yes.
You didn't bury your head in the sand. You didn't try to pretend it wasn't there. You stepped up and did the right things. You got her professional help. And she said, the counselors just seem like they're checking boxes.
Yep.
The people that she actually went into an inpatient program, and she said, everybody in here figures out what the counselors want to hear.
Yes.
Tell them what they want to hear so they can get out. She said they figure the system out really quick, and so we can tell them what they want to hear so we get out of here. And of course, that's cynical, and I know that these counselors don't do this to get rich. Trust me.
Right.
So they're doing the best that they can. You did the right things, but she didn't respond to the help, right?
Right.
And you monitor her very closely. You kept a close eye on her. You didn't just kind of like go on.
No.
You kept a close eye on her.
Especially after that moment, we definitely kept a close eye. She, had quit her part-time job. I didn't let her go back, I tried to do everything that I could, but it was frustrating when she would come home to me and she would tell me, and her frustration showed, they're not helping me, Mom. They're not helping me. All they're doing is asking me the same questions, and it's a list of questions, and depending on how I answer it is whether I get a good job or not.
There's another piece to this, a piece you're going to find really hard to wrap your head around and really hard to find peace with. Coming up, we're going to talk about Elisa's boyfriend. He not only knew about her plan, he helped her carry it out. How did this happen? Where is the moral compass in all of this? We're going to talk about that and how Mom feels about that when we come back. Feeling the pinch of medication shortages and rising prices? Well, you're not alone. When the pharmacy shelves are empty, it's a scary place to be. Benjamin Franklin said it best. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Your health is too important to leave to chance. That's why you need Jace Case. Jace Case is your lifesaver, an emergency supply of essential prescription medications that you order before you need them. When life throws a curveball, be it supply chain hiccups, natural disasters, or a closed doctor's office, you won't be left scrambling. Having these vital medications on hand gives you control over your health. In today's unpredictable world, that peace of mind is priceless. Take control. Be prepared with Jace Case. Just go to jace.com and enter promo PHIL at checkout. That's promo code PHIL at jase.com to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them. The IRS is the largest collection agency, with April 15th fast approaching. It's more aggressive than ever. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting's not an option. The smart move is to get ahead of this. Listen, never contact the IRS alone. Let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS. Now, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. That's tnusa.com/Dr. Phil. April 15th is just around the corner. Act now. What was the last interaction you had with your son?
Right before he went upstairs, my dad came over, we'd fixed my water well. It was a beautiful sunny day and we all were together, and for some reason, he came right up to me and he said, "Dad, I loved you." And I hugged him and I kissed him, and he's about this tall, kissed on top of his hair. I still remember the feeling of his hair against my lips. And then he went upstairs and I had to take a phone call to work, and that was the last time I saw him alive. 30 minutes later, my 8-year-old daughter came down the stairs and said, "Hey, he hung himself." And I ran up the stairs and we tried to save him. And look, Dr. Phil, I wish this on no parent. And I know parents can't even fathom that this could happen to their child, but they've got to talk to them and have the conversation. We didn't.
Tonight, a grieving mother is struggling to understand the source of her daughter's depression and why she would take her own life. This is a question that we all need to talk about. Listen, the measure of any society is how they take care of their young people and their old people. The number 2 cause of death among young people is suicide. Think about that. Young, vibrant, healthy young people with their whole life stretched ahead of them. Think about what Elise has missed. I mean, that's what you talk about. She'll never get married. She'll never have children. She'll never have a career. So many things that she'll never get to see, never get to experience, that you'll never share with her because of this decision. Mm-hmm. And as a society, we need to pay attention to this. Your daughter got caught in a situation where our young people today have the highest level of anxiety, depression, and loneliness since records have been kept. So she's caught up in this wave right now where young people are forlorn. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. And as a society, we're failing these people. Mm-hmm. And all of us, all of you at home, you need to hear this cautionary tale. You need to hear this cautionary tale. Nobody solved this problem. This isn't just a statistic. This is a daughter. This is a young person who's gone. Also seen her last day, the family spent the whole day together, right?
That's right.
You weren't an absent mother.
We had a wonderful day. A wonderful day.
Yeah. And you actually thought, wow, maybe things have taken a turn for the better. Mm-hmm. You thought, maybe this is turning around.
Maybe medication's working. Maybe the counseling's finally working, and she's coming around, and she was happy, and she enjoyed the day, and she was with all of us. She didn't stay secluded in her room, and I thought, maybe it's now. Maybe it's time that things started changing.
She laughed, she joked, but the truth is, research tells us that may very well have been what we often refer to as a short-term or a short-timer's attitude, which is she felt some relief perhaps because she thought, I've made up my mind, I have a way out, and so she felt some relief and thought, okay, I don't have to face this anymore. And so the pressure was off, and so she did feel better that day because she knew this was over. She had made up her mind and she knew this was over. And oftentimes we see an upturn in attitude and belief and emotion because they found a solution in their mind and in their heart. They know, I don't have to put up with this forever. The hopelessness has lifted because they found a solution. They know I'm going to end my life, and so I only have to put up with this for another day, so they feel some relief. And if that would stick, it'd be great, but it doesn't. It's just because they found a short-term, they've got a short-termer's attitude because it's like, okay, I'm going to escape this.
That's right.
Do you think maybe that was what was going on?
That's definitely what was happening.
Yeah.
She, said good night and I want to say good night, but it was really a goodbye to everyone. We always say good night every night, to all the kids, good night, Mom, good night,
She had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend actually knew about this. And what was his explanation to not intervene and help, but instead enable?
He has stated that he was trying to do what she wanted him to do, that she asked him to do that. That's what she wanted. So he was trying to do what she wanted.
And how do you feel about that?
Horrible, absolutely horrible. How could you support that kind of decision? What in his mind made him think that this was the right decision to make? I don't, it's beyond me, and I don't understand. I don't understand why you would not ask for help.
That's where I have a problem with where we are as a society, where we are in terms of our families, that there's not enough of a moral compass there, that he wouldn't go to his parents and say, here's the situation, that he wouldn't come to you as her mother, that he didn't have enough of a moral compass pointing towards true north to say, hey, listen, I hear her, but something's telling me that the end result here is going to be someone's life is gone. I know I need to step up and save her from herself. I need to do something here that makes a difference here. It's not about telling her what she wants to hear. It's about doing something, whether she doesn't like me for it or not. My moral compass tells me that life is precious and I need to protect this young woman, whether she never speaks to me again or not. I need to help. I need to do this. I need to go to my parents, her parents, an adult, the authorities, something, anything, anywhere, something was missing that didn't occur to him, or he didn't have the ego strength to act on that.
It's such a permanent decision. I can understand agreeing with him on where you're gonna have for dinner, but this it's not. It's so permanent. You helped her make a decision that was not just gonna affect her.
Yeah, and so he took her to that location where she had this planned out so she could carry that out, and then he left her there to do it. I am not going to be specific about what she did or how she did it because that's contraindicated. You don't do that. I don't want to glamorize that. I don't want to put the details out there. That's nobody's business. And there's something called contagion effect and copycat effect. I'm not going to put that out there for people to see and hear because likely somebody would think, oh, that's so romantic. No. We're going to do that. Clinically, that's contraindicated, and I'm not going to do that. So that's the reason I'm not doing that. It's nobody's business, and so I'm not going to spell that out. But there was a plan. She had it worked out. He took her there, and she went forward with that plan and ended her life. And I guess he went home.
Yeah, and we found out. I mean, the moment that she left, it was not 5 minutes where she had walked out the door, and me and my husband realized that she was gone, and the cops came and they started looking for her, and we told them right away that she had been talking to him, and they went to go look for him at his house and ask his parents what was going on, and they lied. They all lied, said that he hadn't seen her in days and he had not talked to her.
He was charged, and he's on 3 years probation.
That's correct.
But it could wind up getting completely taken off of his record if he behaves himself during this time. And I don't know him, not mentioning his name. We have a right to, because he was convicted of this, but I'm not trying to hurt another young person. The point is, there was a lot wrong here. You did a lot of things right. A lot of people did a lot of things wrong, and she's gone. And from a society standpoint, we need to really think about that. When this is the number 2 cause of death, this isn't isolated, is my point. We have to ask ourselves why. How are we letting our young people kill themselves? How are we letting our young people die? Where are the adults? Where is the moral compass? We're gonna talk to another mother that's going to join us, whose 12-year-old daughter was pushed to the edge by relentless bullying. Her tragic story next. Struggling with foot, knee, or back pain? G-Defy shoes can change your life. G-Defy shoes are FTC approved to relieve pain caused by weight-bearing activities like walking, running, or prolonged standing. G-Defy absorbs harmful shock and returns energy to each step. This means better body alignment and improved biomechanics. Translation? Freedom to do what you love pain-free. G-Defy shoes have your back. Literally. They're a game changer for seniors and veterans who deserve comfort and support. Here's the deal. You can try G-Defy risk-free with a 60-day trial. And right now, listeners of this podcast get an exclusive offer, 50% off orders of $120 or more. Just text Dr. Phil to 91888. That's right. Half off shoes designed to improve your quality of life. So take control of your life. Text Dr. Phil to 91888 or visit gdefy.com today. It's time to feel good again because you deserve it. Kalea was just 12 years old, a sweet, vibrant girl whose world was shattered by relentless bullying in middle school. Her mother, Ty, says it pushed her daughter to her breaking point. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to what we've been talking about so far, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure you already know this is not an isolated event. This is the number 2 cause of death among young people, which is so tragic. And your daughter attempted suicide in March of 23, and miraculously she survived, but now she is in a vegetative state, correct?
Correct. She's a total care, meaning she doesn't illustrate control of her body. And her father and I, along with the nurses, have to handle her day-to-day care.
Now, you began to notice changes in her demeanor, her personality, just kind of her experience of life in the 6th grade when she started middle school. What were the first warning signs that you saw?
Much like the other mother said, I noticed her being more withdrawn. I always described Kalea as vivacious, bubbly, effervescent, because that was her personality, just always off the walls. And when I would begin to pick her up, because I took her to school and I picked her up every day, and we would always discuss like how her days were. And it went from all of these anecdotes to, I'm fine. It was okay. She began to be really emotional. Just, you could really see that she wasn't her happy, bubbly self. It was more angsty, melancholy, I would call it.
And this is a dramatic change because I've seen pictures and some video and all, and talk about an electric smile. And I mean, this was a vibrant young child. So when you see the changes that you're describing, that's daylight and dark, right? I mean, this was a major shift.
Absolutely. It was night and day. And that's what, so like I said, I always questioned her, but I started to really dig a little deeper because we couldn't understand. Like, my husband and I did everything that we could to make sure that she was able to live a life of comfort, that she was able to glean experiences that we never had for ourselves. We thought that we were doing everything that we could to, give her that perfect suburban existence. And it comes with a little more than what we expected.
Yeah, and the little more than what you expected took the form of a group of what we refer to as mean girls, which is a group of 5 or 6 girls that began to bully her, correct?
Correct.
And this was relentless. And what form did it take? They were calling her names, and they were really relentless about this. What were they calling her? What were they doing?
So, and they began to make fun of her appearance. At first, it was her skin color, calling her black, talking about her picking cotton. Then they started talking about her being a man, talking about her mustache on her face. It was just like all of these things. And, we really bought into the whole kids will be kids. Sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, if it's not true, then it doesn't matter. But for Kalea, it was all that mattered.
Of course, at that age, I mean, you're sensitive about these things. But as I was talking with Assassina here, you didn't just hang back. You set up meetings. You talked to the school. You wrote letters. You talked to guidance counselors. You didn't just leave her out there twisting in the wind. You talked to the school. What kind of reaction did you get?
Oh, gosh. If I got a response at all, Dr. Phil, a lot of the emails that I sent went without a response. There was one that I sent specifically about a racist song being played in the classroom and talking about drinking grape Kool-Aid and a few other things that are stereotypical towards Black Americans. I didn't receive any response back from that. When there was the incident where a teacher was present when my daughter was being harassed at her desk while she was doing her work, she's being called a roach, being called a man. And when the student asked where the roach was, the teacher actually pointed over at my student during that time. And at that time, I refused to return her to school until we had a conference. And I felt like that incident was adequately addressed. The atmosphere was very much where teachers were a part of it, where they wanted to be cool kids. And so they would just sit back and let the classroom run itself instead of letting there be law and order, instead of there being correction. And they were just letting the kids do what they may.
You see what I mean when I say society is not stepping up here? There are bullies that have been identified. They were identified by name. You knew who they were. They were identified to the school. At one point I believe it was in a letter, you said, what are you going to do if she were actually to kill herself? If this got to her so bad that she actually hurt herself or killed herself? How prophetic was that she actually did self-harm and attempt to take her own life? Was there any response to that letter?
No. And the teacher who I wrote it to, so I wrote it to the teacher who was a part of the incident. I copied in the principal and the teachers. They have leaders in their groups. I copied in the lead. And nobody wrote me back. I did receive a call just letting me know that they weren't going to be able to address the situation specifically due to the time period within which it occurred in. But Dr. Phil, I wrote that letter from 7th grade me, remembering what it was like for me in middle school and experiencing some of those things and recognizing fully the mental health impact there. I didn't write it thinking that Kalea was suicidal. I didn't write it thinking that this could actually be a chapter in her story. I wrote it from the wounded child that still lives inside of me.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about why the family's nightmare is far from over next. After relentless bullying in middle school, Ty's 12-year-old daughter was pushed to a desperate act. And again, I have two mothers here that if I was going to put together what a responsible parent should do in the face of a child presenting with depression, anxiety, loneliness, suicidal ideation, in the face of environmental problems in school, bullying, things like that, these two would be the poster moms. This would be what you do if you face that kind of situation. So I feel really frustrated here because I wish I had something I could say to you as to say, you should have done A, B, and C, and use you as a teaching tool for other moms. Or I'd say, look, you should have written a letter. Oh, you did. You should have called the school. Oh, you did. You should have gotten actively involved and stood shoulder to shoulder with your daughter. Oh, you did. I mean, you actually did the things that I would advise mothers to do. And my frustration here is, where are the adults in these situations? You've got a boyfriend that actually helps your daughter take her own life. Where are the adults in this school? I'll tell you where they are. They have a lawyer, a union that's telling them, you don't want to get involved in this because there could be liability. Well, there is liability because you're involved, whether you want to be constructively involved or passively involved, you are involved in this. They can't look the other way. You filed a lawsuit because there's zero investigation into this situation, right? They're not even looking into it after the fact. Is that correct?
No, they're just shifting blame. So now we're moving on to mudslinging and wanting to investigate whether or not it was her home life when we have evidence to support what was occurring within the halls of their school. We are not the first lawsuit in 2024. We were number 2. So there's definitely an issue. And what I don't understand is their lack of accountability in wanting to address something that had the ability to save lives. Kalea's story was a teachable moment. The school ignored it. They never talked about it other than an email that they sent to the teachers. I and the Girl Scout leader both were behooving them. This is a teachable moment. This is a chance to say how you treat people matters. Look at what happened to our Firebird. That did not happen. They just swept it under the rug. But this is a county that says that there is zero tolerance for bullying.
Well, they actually gave us a statement about that, and I need to read it. We strongly deny any allegations or suggestions that teachers and staff failed to take appropriate action. Each complaint was thoroughly investigated at the time that it was made, and the parent was kept informed at every step of the process. Greenville County Schools maintain a zero tolerance policy for bullying. While we do not agree with the allegations in this lawsuit, we extend our deepest sympathies to Kalea, her mother, and their family. Now, that's a statement from Greenville County Schools. Any response to the statement?
That statement is the first relation of any sympathy or empathy towards our daughter, who spent her entire school career in Greenville County Schools, who was an excellent student and a wonderful peer, heavily talented. And I tell her every day what happened to her. It will not be in vain. It's much bigger than harm. And that's the reason that I decided to sue. No other parent should have to experience it. No other child should have to experience it. There has to be accountability. There needs to be more mental health resources available to our students. We are entrusting them to the school system. Where is the responsibility?
Well, that's why we're talking about this. Coming up, a brave Marine returned from deployment to face a heartbreak he never expected. You'll see what that led to when we come back. My next guest, Zach, was a young Marine coming home from deployment to discover the end of his marriage. He spiraled into darkness, feeling no way out, and he shot himself. in the head, but he survived. He is now blind. He's deaf in one ear. But in a sense, it was a tremendous wake-up call. Now, Zach, thank you for joining us tonight. Do you wake up in the mornings shocked that you're still here?
It still feels fake sometimes, I think, because I can't see anything. So sometimes when I have dreams and then I wake up, I wonder which one is real, because I can see in my dreams. But yeah, it's definitely, I look back on everything that's happened, and sometimes it feels surreal that I'm still here, but it's being able to talk about it in situations like this, where hopefully it'll keep someone else from going down that path, has been a new sense of purpose.
Do you ever wish that you had succeeded?
No. I've had periods where I struggled, and I would say even worse than I did leading up to my suicide attempt, because I was sober and I felt the full weight of it, and now had to come to terms with the fact of my life has changed forever and it's all my fault. This didn't happen from an accident. It was because I made the choice not to speak up. And in those times, I have reached the point where I've been suicidal, but I learned from my mistakes and realized that things can and will get better so long as I continued to choose to show up and do the work. And so I haven't felt that way.
And, I mentioned when we were talking about Elise earlier that right at the end, she had an upturn in her mood and all, and you were that way just for a moment when you felt you had found a way out, right? You felt a sense of peace right at the end. You had found a way out, and it was over.
Yeah, and I got the chills when she was talking about that. I'd never heard that short-termers phrase used before, but it was 4 days before I shot myself. It had been a year before that. I'd come back from my deployment, was in a really nasty motorcycle accident after that, and suffered a brain injury from that really kicked things off down the dark path that I wound up going down. But by the time that I reached that point on March 27th of 2019, I don't remember what triggered that, but for some reason that night I was stone cold sober, and that was the first time in my life that I'd ever mishandled a firearm. But something made me look to my concealed carry firearm and realize that this inescapable place that I thought I was in, or seemingly inescapable place, was all of a sudden escapable. And I cleared my gun out and held it to my head and decided that night that was going to be my ticket out. And a couple days later, on March 30th, my parents were at my apartment it was both my parents and my little sisters in the very room that I had just held the gun to my head a couple nights beforehand, and the same room that I would eventually shoot myself in the head in. They thought I was grumpy and tired, but I was going to school full time. I was working full time, and grumpy wasn't necessarily outside of my baseline by that point. And the next day I wound up shooting myself in the head. But even before that, I spoke to my roommate minutes before I went back in my room and pulled the trigger, having been recording a suicide video to my family when he got home. Yeah. I pushed pause on it and acted like everything was normal.
Yeah. Boy, Zach is talking about some of the key warning signs and red flags, and I'm going to review those right after the break. Well, we've been talking about what I think is a societal problem, not an individual problem. And we were just talking with Zach, and he hit so many things that we need to be aware of. And I want to talk about some of these things. First off, the realities about who is at risk for suicide. Number one, people that talk about suicidal thoughts, these are realities. People that talk about suicidal thoughts can actually decrease the risk. It helps sometimes to talk about it and get it out. It's cathartic. People who talk about it are not just seeking attention. And if you hear people talk about it, then ask direct questions. Don't tiptoe around it. Ask them straight up. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Do you have a plan? Have you gotten a gun? Do you have pills? Is there something you're getting ready to do? Tell me the truth. Ask direct questions about it. People who die by suicide are not selfish cowards. They're often overwhelmed by intense emotional pain, hopelessness, and fixed beliefs. And by fixed beliefs, I mean they get tunnel vision. See, that's what I was saying to you. So they can't see or hear anything else. And so sometimes you need to protect them from themselves. Therapy and medication targeting psychiatric illnesses or addiction often do help. Now, genetics and environment are also factors, it's true, but things that you can do actually help. Limiting exposure to options can save lives. When they put up fences around bridges so people can't jump off, that does lower the number of people that do it. When guns are locked up and put in safes so people can't do it, that actually helps. And those at risk often do show red flags. Zach was just talking about that. And what are those red flags? These are just a few. Preoccupation with death or violence, radical changes in grooming, exhibiting high-risk behaviors. All of a sudden, they don't care if they live or die, so they'll go out and do wild things. Acquiring a means to take one's own life, like they buy a firearm or they have poison around. Giving away prized possessions. I mean, I know this sounds obvious, but if things that they really love, they start giving those away. Radical mood swings. Making heartfelt goodbyes to key people in their lives. Directly telling people, I'm going to kill myself, or I wish I were dead, or I'm sorry I'm such a burden. An unexplainable upswing in mood or demeanor indicates a short-term attitude. Extreme withdrawal. All of these things add up to things you should see. Somebody giving you a sign. It's a cry for help. Final thoughts next. All three of you are very brave to come here and share this tonight to help other people. So I want to thank Azucena, thank you. Ty, thank you. Zach, thank you. If you or someone you know is talking about suicide, please call or text the 3-digit number 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. We'll see you next time.